Welcome to Just Keep Walking. This is a podcast focused on the Walking Dead TV show, and today we're going to be chatting with co-composer for Season 10, Sam Ewing. He's also been involved in the music in varying degrees since Season 5, and it was a really interesting interview. He had so much great stuff to share about the process for scoring, as well as specific cues, specific scenes, so I really hope you guys enjoyed it. It was an amazing conversation chatting with him. A couple quick notes. First of all, I've inserted a little bit of music at a couple points just to give you a reference for which track we're talking about if it wasn't played as a part of the actual interview. So if you hear that underneath any of us talking, then that's what's going on there. And also, I made a little bit of a mistake on my end just with the technical side of things. I had my mic faced around the wrong way. It's pretty much looks identical on both sides except for a small dot. So I was very focused on making sure that the Zoom call and everything worked, and it sounded fine through there, but I forgot to double check that side of things. So it's not quite up to the quality standard that we usually try and meet, but you'll still be able to hear me nice and clearly. So just wanted to explain that. That's why it's not quite as good quality as we usually put out. But there we go. And I really hope you enjoy the interview, guys. I'll catch you at the end. Cool. Alrighty. Well, let's dive into it. Talk about Walking Dead. So, one thing or a couple of things before we get into some of my questions. So the other two co-hosts who do the podcast with me, Liam and Isaac, they sent through a few quick questions just to kick us off. So one from Isaac is obviously a very important one. Do you like the song Easy Street that Daryl had to listen to in season 7?
Do I like the song? I feel like I am morally and contractually obligated to say yes. Absolutely.
Really? Okay.
I can't say I like, seek it out, but no, it's one of those things. It's a creative decision. And mostly with the showrunner, frankly, and the whole production team, and then so my place with needle drops and things like that are I'm always supportive of those decisions. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's awesome. It's just been a bit of a long-running debate. He loves it. He played it at his wedding and everything. And because it was used as torture for Daryl, I'm like, no, you can't play that.
Yeah,
there we go.
That's so funny. Okay, all right.
Yeah. And then a question from Liam. This may or may not be a bit of a tricky one, so you can generalize it if you want. But could you? Is there any standout favorite track that you've been involved with, and also one that you haven't been involved with, one from before you were involved in the show?
Yeah, sure.
Or a couple, if that's easier.
No, that's okay. Let's see. I'd say the favorite track I've been involved with is, and this is spoiler alert for those who haven't seen season 9, but 9:15, the Pikes scene. I think just, I guess, compositionally, I'm really proud of that piece, and it's a big scene. I love the way it was directed. It just lends itself to being very cool and fun and terrifying scene. Just a lot of fun to weave in and out of those reveals of the heads. So that 9:15, I'm getting that episode right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just, for me, that was, yeah, that's the one, I'd say, hands down. Let's see, season 10, I'm trying to remember if there were, I'd say the Michonne, what was that? It was so funny. Was it 10:13? I think. What We Become?
Yeah, that's it.
The Michonne episode. That one, I had a lot of fun with that one. it's just one of those stories that's like self-contained and it's Michonne's send off. We wanted to make it special, and we did make a little video about that. It was too short, but just to show some of the performances with our string quartet. That was a lot of fun. The finale was also fun. So anyway, just to throw a couple of them out there, I'd say like something I was not involved with that I wish I was involved with. What? Let's see. Sophia walking out of the barn.
Oh yeah.
I just think that was, first of all, a really cool episode. And it, if those of you who remember, there was very little music generally in the episode, and in the show, I think we try to aim for having as little music as possible. It's one of those things, like if you don't need it, like don't put it there.
Sure,
it was just such a good episode and had such a, I was gonna say cool and tragic ending. And it just lent itself to a really nice piece that Bear wrote, and I love it. I love it, and I don't think I could have topped it by any means, but it's I just love that scene. So anyway, there you go.
Absolutely, yeah, man, that was an amazing reveal. It always gets you, even just rewatching it, knowing what's going to happen. It's so well done. Hey,
exactly.
So you've been involved since around season 5, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Cool. So, what is some of the stuff that you were a part of before season 10? Because obviously season 10's when you're, officially co-composer and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what were some of the tracks that you played a big part in before that one?
Yeah, sure. Well. So this is going to be interesting for a lot of people who might not know how this sort of industry works, and with television and all of that. But yeah, Bear had sort of taken me under his wing during season 5. So the beginning of season 5, and this was early on in Scott Gimple's reign as the showrunner, and Bear was just getting busy around that time. So I think that was around 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Like summer of 2014, something like that, when we started picking up season 5. So I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and had been getting more involved with him and his team musically and creatively, compositionally. And so my involvement on the additional music side of things on The Walking Dead had started to ramp up there. And I'd say like when it really sort of took off was with my contribution to 508 with the Beth scene. That was right. That was kind of like where it something clicked, and I think there I think I had found the vein musically with the show, and Bear had just kind of given me the reins and little opportunities with bigger moments like that. So right. And then after that, it just my involvement steadily grew. And then I think season 9 is just I was especially involved. And then in 10, of course, he offered me the co-credit, which I am super grateful for. And frankly didn't expect. So I was just
right.
On his part, very generous and So anyway, I'm really grateful for that. So yeah,
that's
there
awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, so you mentioned like the Pike scene earlier. Was that something you were fairly heavily involved in putting together?
Yes, yes, it is. I mean, I wrote it. And
Okay, cool.
it's one of those things. That's like a thing where, and this. So that's a scene where I would have back and forth with Bear, and but yeah, that even though I know it's weird because like it is from season 9 and like earlier, Bear is the sole composer, right? So it's like strange to hear that, but yeah, this is like it's not an unusual sort of way to operate a show like that. That's not to say he's not involved, though. I mean, he's extremely involved, and with especially with just the sort of direction and feedback on, but if he's not writing every cue, like can you blame him for
It's a lot of work, I can imagine.
Yeah. So anyway,
yeah. Oh, fantastic.
So yeah.
Well, that's that whole Pike scene, and particularly how it continues into Sadiq's speech afterwards, and then even that scene with Lydia and Daryl at the Pikes, putting down the H.
Yeah.
That whole thing. That's my favorite episode from the whole series. I just love how that all flowed, and the music had obviously a massive part of that. So yeah, definitely good job on that.
Well, that's so. It's so cool, man. Well, I love hearing that. I mean, that was a particularly fun, like stretch to write, as you mentioned, and I well, thank you for saying that.
Oh, good, yeah, and even just I suppose, yeah, Lydia at the end, you get that feeling of what's next. Like, man, I've just lost absolutely everything. I've left my community, gone to this new community, and the one person I knew's just died. So like, all of that was encapsulated into the music. So man, yeah, I can't say good job enough. That was amazing. Just some like sort of general process stuff and all that. With when you're scoring, what's your general philosophy for when do you use music? When do you make it really, stand out and pack a punch? Or when do you choose to be more subtle? Could you run us through maybe what your thought process is for those sort of things?
Yeah. So the composer of the show, in this case, it would be Bear and I. This is I'd say relatively standard for movies and TV shows in general. We will come into post-production once the editor, the showrunner, in this case Angela, have locked something down. So the episode is basically done, and they've put in temp music. So there's already a really, really clear idea before we even step into the picture about what the function of the music is. And I think the showrunner and the editors in particular, have such a strong amount of input on what music is going to do. I mean, you're an editor, Ben, right? So you were just telling me. So, and like, isn't like not half, but like there is a part of your brain that is just occupied for like you just want to grab some music and,
100%,
and it's just like, sometimes it's cutting to something, it gives you a rhythm, and sometimes it's like the scene just, so I gotta say, like, the editors so often are making those choices well in advance, and then they're sculpting it and they're shaping it with Angela, and so we will come in and there will be this temp in place, and then from there it's like there's this, I'd say there's like there's like that 33% of it, that 1/3 chunk that the composer and the music team can really sculpt and like
Okay.
chisel away at. So we'll sit down and we'll say like, like Angela, like what if we just make this scene dry? Like there's this action bed, but there's all these sound effects that I'm sure like once they're on the mix stage, they'll be pumped up even more. Like, do we need to work so hard here? And sometimes it's dramatic swaths and changes like that. Sometimes it's I would say most often it's just fine tuning and things like, the music, it comes in on this shot or on this cut, but what if we come in earlier and we pre-lap with this and then we like, so sometimes it's just fine tuning the like little emotional beats and feathering in instead of coming in with a hit. And then of course, beyond that, it's making the music totally custom, and oftentimes it's very thematic and that's sort of, in my opinion, that is like the job of the composers, to stay true to the show and the theme and the score that they are crafting, because that's something the editors like, just like very rarely are the editors so in tune with all of the pieces of music. And so it usually only pays off afterwards when you watch the whole season front to back and you realize like there are these needles being thread throughout the different camps and all of that. So in any case, it's I guess to put it succinctly, it is a team effort, 100%.
Oh, awesome. Oh, that's really cool. And that flows well into a question about, I suppose, themes. And I'm not very good with musical terms, so forgive me for that. But
themes.
But character themes or themes related to a specific, situation or things like that. Are you very intentional about setting those up and only using them in specific moments, or is it something that's often kind of improvised, depend on where the story goes? What's the process for those sort of things?
No, so between if there's like a meter here and the needle can be either sort of, like loosey-goosey, like we have, we like go with the flow, sort of see where it lands. Versus like surgical. We're always on the surgical side. So every moment, every beat is like very, very carefully thought out with that. And, but it becomes a, like an editor who finds a rhythm, and whatnot. It's the same thing with us composers. You sort of just get into a rhythm and like you see someone on screen, and it's not usually just their presence on screen, but it's oftentimes the DNA of that character, the driving motor of that character. When that motor fires up, like that's when you want to hear the theme. So with Alpha, for example, in seasons 9 and 10, like when she comes on screen, like what we'll often do is we'll tease with like her bed. So we had these like hurdy-gurdy bends, and you might hear that when she's on screen, just to kind of like build the atmosphere, like we're in the Whisperer's territory. This is Alpha's zone. And then but then they're like maybe a minute into the scene, and I'm just imagining something. She might say, like, we gotta get back my daughter, and that's my terrible Georgia accent, but she'll say something like that, and it's like this motivating factor that's driving her character and driving the story. That is where we are going to put those 4 notes. Dun 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 dun. That's just an example. So we're incredibly surgical about that, and oftentimes, and not to like throw the editors under the bus now, but often again, you can't blame them. But like the editors will grab a piece that it might actually have like Whisperer's DNA, but it's under like a fight scene with Daryl or something, and there are no Whisperers anywhere. And as a temp, it is effective because it's giving us the mood.
Sure.
But then as the composer, we'll come in and we will change it, and we'll make sure thematically it is absolutely accurate. So
Yeah.
we're totally police about that.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. Hey, and like you said, being able to, go back and rewatch it and then pick up on things. Oh, that was planted there, and then you sort of hear it pay off. I love that. That's
Exactly.
Oh, awesome. And so, obviously, not every character or every location or whatever has a theme. How do you choose what you want to give a specific, musical theme to, or what's better left alone? Yeah.
That is the $1 million question, Ben. It's like, because, well, here's the short answer is basically you want the themes to have meaning and impact. And if every character in the show had a theme, just to be really dramatic for a second. If every character had a theme, then it'd be too much. The themes that you want to punch through,
sure,
wouldn't have enough meaning. And a lot of times it's just like it's so. And to maybe go back on the previous question a little bit, sometimes it is like, I said we're very surgical, and we are always very surgical, but sometimes we'll create something like, for example, the Daryl and Carol storyline in season 10. They kind of had a little theme, and it
was that guitar riff that was sort of under while they're talking about New Mexico.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah, and that was 10:01, I believe, what you're referring to. It's this. I wish my keyboard was hooked up and through Zoom right now, but it's this little dun 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 dun, and it's delicate and kind of sad and kind of hopeful, and they're thinking about the future. This was a little thing that I don't think we planned on being a theme, and to call it a theme is kind of like a disservice to the Whisperer's alpha theme, which is so present and strong and recurring. This we only hear maybe a handful of times in the whole season. Nonetheless, we discussed with Angela in that first season 10 spotting session, this storyline with Carol and Daryl is going to be important. Their story is taking off. Their connection is getting stronger. They're gonna sort of have a struggle with communication, Yeah. And then at the end, they have this cool moment where they sort of rejoice. And so we knew right away this is just an important storyline. So with that in mind, I had written this piece, and then you just end up seeing moments later on in the season where it's let's use that thing, and then and it kind of becomes a theme, and it's I would categorize that as a B theme, and then you've got your and then you've got the alpha theme comes to mind as sort of the as an A theme, where it's just so present, and then I would also take Beta sort of ended up getting his own theme too, and that was another thing where it kind of evolved and started with, and I'm forgetting the episode number, but the Beta in Alexandria.
Stalker, 1010.
Was that 10 where he comes out of the grave?
Yeah, that's the one.
yeah, exactly. And so he kind of ended up becoming the distorted heavy metal version of Alpha. But these little branches sort of take off, and then they just grow, and then you find opportunities. And I imagine it's a lot like the writer's room in a show, where you don't know necessarily way in advance what a certain character is going to do, but as you write them, you kind of to see this guy's going here. That'd be interesting if we did this. So it's the same kind of thing with the themes. But that's all to say, we save the themes for only the characters and the stories that we want to absolutely punch through.
Right, yeah. So, do you guys get like sort of an overview of where the season's going to go early on so that you can plan for those things, or do you just generally get given one episode at a time and see what happens?
The second one.
Okay, yeah.
It's not that we don't have access to that information,
Right.
but I gotta say it's something I've observed having done this now for a little while. I don't know if it's like a secrecy thing or like showrunners and producers, they just kind of like to let the composer and the music team just kind of discover the story arc as the audience would. But it's just a weird little thing I've noticed. Showrunners like to give you one episode and then kind of let you run with it, and it's sometimes like I notice in spots it's like I'm almost afraid to ask like if I'm like, is this person gonna die, or like are they gonna survive? and it's almost like you just like work with the suspense as a composer, because if you don't know, then you might write more effective music. That being said, like not to undermine like the discussions that happen, because very very well may be that we'll say, okay, this character, they're going to be super important. Like I said with Angela, right away she was like, Carol and Daryl, this is going to be a thing. Just keep an eye out.
Sure.
That being said, it's not like we crack open a synopsis of the entire season and so generally I generally it's very like episode by episode, which is kind of weird and cool,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I suppose it really does make sense that you want to be kind of in the same shoes as the audience, because if you're 2 steps ahead, then, it might not line up with what they're supposed to be feeling in the moment. So, yeah, exactly. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, looking at a few of the specific themes from season 10, actually, I'll bring up one from season 9 as well. I'd just love to sort of go through a few of those and maybe get your take on how those came about, and if you have any interesting thoughts on those. So, one from season 9 actually was the very start of the season opened with
fiddle.
Fiddle. There we go. That's the. You start with the fiddle, and there's a bit of that sort of guitar underneath that comes in the second episode, and it's sort of almost the same theme that builds up, and then by the end of the season, when they're all signing the charter, then you get the really full version of it. So I just loved how that evolved, and you could, it sort of felt a little bit incomplete at first. It ended, on a bit of a darker, unresolved note, and then by the end it feels full and complete. So is that something that was really you wanted to do from the start, or can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the short answer for that is yes, we did. And I'd say that's thanks to Angela, who she was adamant about when 901 fires up, you've got these shots of Alexandria, I believe, and or is it Hilltop? I'm actually not. And so
Alexandria. Yeah.
It's Alexandria, right? And we have an opportunity there to establish what Angela wanted to be a little kind of hope theme, and so that's this. And by the way, this is when Angela took over as showrunner, which is interesting to note. Nothing other than that, but right away our discussion was, we want to establish in this season that we are sort of going back to our roots as a community and like rediscovering old tools. That's really what 901 was about. Partly is when they go the museum heist. They're basically stealing this crop machine that is going to be which is like it's an archaic tool. It's literally in a museum, but they're like taking it because it will like make their jobs more efficient. So in that same way, we wanted to reflect that in the music, which means losing a lot of the electronics, which was a sort of, we kind of went that John Carpenter way for a while and had that really electronic, gurgly, synth-based sound. Here is we hit the reset button a little bit, and so again, acoustic instruments, and this is where. So with that in mind, like, you know, I went off. I remember I wrote a piece of music and like I sent it to Bear, and I'm like, all right, what do you think? And he's like, dude, there's way too much going on. He's like, what? Okay. He's like, I want you to start over, and just give me like one instrument. Just give me a solo fiddle, nothing else, and like give me space. And like looking back, it's like so obvious. It's like, duh, it's such a good idea. And it also, and like he didn't know this, I didn't know this, but like it would work well to your point that like it starts off feeling kind of incomplete and sort of unsupported because it's this very exposed fiddle thing, which I played the fiddle part, which is my room is a mess, by the way, but
nice,
just to show you. So yeah, I recorded this thing and then it was like, okay, this is it. And we sent it off to Angela and there was actually some debate. We went back and forth with some other like sort of a little more joyous or something piano thing, and the fiddle ended up being our thing. It's so in any case, it just ended up working out, and that was our idea, was to plant this little hope theme that would at least be in the beginning of episodes 1 and 2, and then and I think we might have had flavors of it in 3, and then what did you say? It was
there were like some tiny hints at it. Even in 6 there was like a small little hint of the fiddle, and then 9-15 when they're actually signing the charter, and it sort of feels like now they're completing the thing that Rick started all these years ago.
Exactly.
And it's awesome, hey.
Exactly. Well, I'm very impressed by your level of observation. So yeah.
Good.
So anyway,
I like it.
Cheers to that.
The show.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool.
Awesome. So yeah, season 10 we get the new family theme, I guess I'd call it. For the Grimes family, it's mainly seems to be focused on. What's the story behind that one?
Well, this is another kind of. I think Angela had flagged this one early on. This is and by the way, this 10:01. So we go to the spotting session. You know, this is one of those discussions where just for example, just so a little sort of sneak peek for those of you interested in the sort of spotting session process. We show up to the spot. We play 10:01. It opens up with that beach scene, right? Yeah. Where they're doing this like it's almost like training or something, where they're just very sort of methodically taking out this sort of locked up group of zombies in that boat. I think we watched that scene through and like we were like, seems pretty straightforward. Okay, let's move on. It's like we know what to do. It's like it's procedural. It's not necessarily thematic. But when that Michonne scene came up with her and the kids, that's a moment where we would like pause and talk for 20 minutes because first of all, Angela's going to flag for us. This is a send-off season for Michonne. So okay, we going back to what I'd said. We knew that, and it's partly just to highlight the importance of this little thing with her, And so with that in mind, with that in mind, we knew we wanted a theme. We know we want it to be acoustic and organic, like we had sort of established in season 9. And then beyond that, musically speaking, I knew it wanted to be small. I mean, right, and innocent. And I think part of that innocence. So, and to get a little bit musically nerdy here, the Lydian mode which it kind of lives in, at least for the first portion. We've got this 4 major chord, and then dun 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 dun. Dun, dun. So what it does is it creates this kind of, for whatever reason, Lydian just sounds like kids walking to school to me. Maybe it's because I grew up in the 90s, but this little figure, it's all about innocence and resolve and space and pure happiness, So that really followed Michonne around, and then it kind of became Judith's little thing after that. As you may have observed, like at the end of the season, it kind of just starts following her around, and it's and it just kind of, that was one of those things like you don't plan. It just kind of worked out. In 13, when Michonne goes off, she kind of, it's 13, right? Or is it 12? 'Cause
13, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I won't get into it, but we had them like flipped around in post.
Right. I did hear about that actually, that it got changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I never. In 13, they're having that conversation on the walkie-talkie. So she kind of like hands this off to Judith in a way. This sort of responsibility as the strong one, it's like literally Judith is like being the mother figure to Michonne, who's like crying on the other end. So I think that just kind of worked out. And yeah, so I don't know. Hopefully,
that's awesome. I really like that idea of that handing off. Hey, because before then I thought maybe it was sort of a Michonne and Judith theme, except for the bit where she's talking with Ezekiel and Judith's not there. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something else going on. But yeah, I really like that. Hey, that's sort of Michonne's and gets handed over.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. Very, very astute of you.
Cheers. So Ezekiel, he's sort of almost got like 2 different themes with there's that low like horn blow for, when he's really going through a bit of depression and he's got the cancer and everything like that. And then also from season 9, that opening track from when they're leaving the kingdom, that comes back a few times. How did that sort of come about, those themes for him? And
well, it's interesting. I think those are an example of, like, I wouldn't even call those B themes. I would call them like just like C themes at best. That's an example of, and maybe looking back, like there would have been an opportunity to establish like a more precise and surgical musical idea for Ezekiel. But it just ended up working out that his theme was going to be, his moments were going to be sort of more of a through composed musical idea that we just took case by case. So leaving the kingdom, I think, we knew. So, well, and just to be clear, are we talking, because there's sort of a kingdom thing we had established, this like banjo, this hilltop thing, I guess. And then there was like
I'll pull it up for you actually, so I can show you the one I'm thinking about. Just a second. this one here, so it's sort of fairly slow and
yeah.
it's got the dialogue over it and stuff. Obviously.
Is this the cancer?
So this is from season 9 when they're leaving Hilltop and packing up, and then it does come back at a couple points.
Right.
Yeah, with the cancer and stuff like that as well.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is exactly one of those examples of a piece that was just kind of written and then and I think actually, like, for example, the in like there's a scene with him and the cancer where I think the editor had just had dropped that in, and we were like, this works beautifully, and it calls back, and it's just one of those moments where like it just clicks. And so we so it sort of like was born into a kind of theme, but wasn't necessarily planned that way. So, and that happens all the time. So I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't like discredit its thematicness.
Oh, not at all. And like you said, I mean, however it came about, it definitely works well because it, I suppose just ties into, it reminds you of how much he's lost, because even if it's subconsciously, you're thinking a little bit back to that scene of losing the kingdom, and now he's lost Carol and he's got cancer and everything's going wrong. So yeah,
exactly.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
rough life for that guy, man.
Absolutely. So there's I only noticed it in the very last episode, that track that's used. Especially, it's very strong towards the end when all the walkers are falling off the cliff and Lydia chucks the mask. And I noticed that was sort of seated a little earlier in the episode in like a different key. It was very subtle, but is that something that you set up as almost a Lydia Carol theme, potentially to use for the future? Or how did that go?
So let's see. We're talking about the one that was done.
So that was sort of a stronger version of it, and then this was like a bit more subtle and in a bit of a different key and everything.
Once again, very astute, man. You're really listening. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. Again, like looking back, maybe we could have planted that earlier in the season, but it ended up being like a 10, 16 kind of thing where we felt like it just needed something special, first of all. And it's really when Carol and Lydia like unite, and it's like so cathartic and so yeah, this was one of those things where it almost like you almost reverse engineer it, where
right.
I think and not that I had written that scene first with the cliff and the mask, but it ended up working out where I think, and actually, and you might want to look back, but there's a dialogue scene with Lydia and Carol earlier in the episode where Carol's got her back turned and Lydia and she's like, it's okay, like you don't need to be my mother. I think that's the scene. I think I had tried planting it there, and I think we ended up like stripping back a little bit.
I did notice that very subtly. I was like, I had to go back and listen a couple of times to make sure, but it was cool just to get that tiny hint of it there.
Yeah, and that's exactly. It's so subtle. But ultimately, like the thing we wanted to nail was the emotion, so that's why it kind of has this sweet, again, a sort of innocent, like mother-daughter sort of thing, and nothing else like that last piece, just like catharsis, it's like this tension between these two had been going on for so long. and they're embracing each other and they're crying and like the mask is flying off the cliff, and there's so much there. So it's really just about giving the emotion, and then I think like just planting those little seeds that kind of lead up to it, so it's not just this piece of music out of nowhere. Is just kind of that a little bit of surgical musical intention, but I'm not sure it's a theme. I mean, but you know, it's like one of those things. Once we get into 11, maybe we'll find moments between them where we can quote that. But I almost feel like it's, you know, it's like this finale. It's a season 10 finale.
Sure.
Like kind of special sauce that like it happened and it's over. Like we experienced it, and like you know what I mean. Like there's no going back.
Awesome, yeah, and it makes sense. You know, just to have things that are only for the one episode as well. So yeah,
right.
I don't want to, you know, look too far into everything.
No.
That's cool. Hey.
Great questions. Yeah.
And then so you've got the whisper theme, and then like you mentioned a bit earlier, that almost branches off into kind of like 2 or 3 individual things as well. You've got Beta's version, which is what instrument is that, by the way? It's I don't know how to explain it for
him. No, that's okay. So it's funny, I think what ended up becoming his instrument was primarily the flute.
Right.
So and I'm sure you can hear it, but it's flute doubled with violin. So
that makes so much sense, actually.
Yeah. So I almost want to like go grab it and show you, but like I'm terrible at flute, but like right, like so but you run that through Decapitator, which is Decapitator is this plugin for those musicians out there by Sound Toys. It sounds amazing. You just throw this plugin on anything and like turn up the drive knob all the way. It's going to sound great. But you take that, right?
Yeah.
And then you double that with a little bit of fiddle, of violin, right? And then
awesome.
Right. and by the way, you might like. Sorry for going off the rails a little bit.
No, go for it.
But like, you know, and then you might hear these other sounds, like when he's coming out of the grave, you've got this just. But you process it and like drop it down an octave and throw Decapitator or whatever, and that kind of just became his sound. That, and then. We had talked about when he comes out of the grave, it's really this. We had this really fun discussion about like, what if we just go like me and Bear and Angela were like, what if we just go like full like metal? He comes out of the grave and it's this like like down with the sickness, like So we ended up making this bass thing. So it's this deep electric bass riff, and these toms really become his backbone, because there's just something about him as a character that is so metal, So anyway, that's kind of how that came about, and those are the instruments used, but nice. I don't know, that answers the beta part of it.
And that backbone you're talking about, the sort of percussion and everything. I loved how that came back and was used in the opening montage for 1016. Just
that's right.
Obviously you start and it's all surrounding Beta, this big threat of the Horde, but then it flows into the really epic montage and the different instruments come in.
That's right.
That goosebumps every time. Hey?
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. It's also a lot of fun to figure out how to get in and out of the main title and mostly into the main title, because especially if we're going to do the strings, the little pre-lap, then it's like, okay, well, we can tempo match them, and I think we did that in 16, where it's like,
that definitely,
yeah. So I think there's like a close up of him or something, and we had this string sneak in.
Yeah, that was trying to see if I've got it here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it sort of had the drums and the strings all coming in at once. Yeah, and then that just made the whole thing so much more epic. Like, it was like, oh, here we go, shoots you into the main titles.
Exact. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, I like, because I don't remember what the tempo of the main title is off the top of my head, but it's something like, don't quote me on this at all, but it's something off like 89.64 BPM or something. So, and we have like scores laying around of that, and so whenever I need to go grab the tempo for something like that, where we really intentionally want to line it up with a new piece of music in the teaser, like that, like Beta's thing, then you've got to go get the tempo, and then you got to do this like mathematical gymnastics to make all the beats line up exactly right. But when you get it right, it feels so good.
Definitely. Yeah, and there was in episode 14 as well, it wasn't as much that the music tied into the the opening strings, but I'm assuming I can give credit to you for this. I wasn't sure whether it was more the editor or you, but if you add the music after the edit, then I'd say it was probably you, because I just love the timing of how I'll play it here when Carol says that takes time or something like that. Then there's just this moment where it like kicks. I don't know. It's just at the right time. It's really satisfying. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
No, is this what? No, I don't. Is it? Did you say this was in 14?
I'll play that here for you.
How long are we talking about?
You're free now, Negan. Do whatever the hell you want. Wait, don't wait. It's up to you. I need to be alone. Shit like that takes time.
Just the timing of that was so satisfying.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? I do deserve a little credit here, because this is one of those scenes that I like. I don't know why, but I just like slaved over it, and like it comes and goes, right? It's just this tense dialogue scene with Negan and Carol, and then it flips to the present day, and she's got Alpha's head on the spike on the pike. Yeah. And there's like this sort of mix of emotions there, and it's all pretty straightforward, but this ending and this transition into that main title, like I like killed myself, like, because first of all, you're like balancing these different keys, and I think I wanted to, and for those musicians out there, like, I'm pretty sure it turned into a sort of cadence where it's like it turned into a 5-1. So the main title's in G minor. So I think the track I'd written ends in D. So you get this sort of suspense. Dun, dun, I'm not singing the correct keys there, but
that's all right.
it just has this handoff that's really satisfying, and I obsessed over the timing and like the reverb tail and the string swell before that. If you hear it's just like, and then there's a, and then it's like you carve out just the right amount of time for her dialogue beat, and then you wait just the right amount of time for the strings to come in, but the strings are locked into a grid. Like, you can't have an incomplete Walking Dead string riff. Like, that sounds terrible. Sure. So, it's always got to be the complete boom. So that was So thank you for pointing that out. I spent a long time over that. And I think me and Mike Baber, who is the music editor, we had to, I can't remember what we did, but I think it's like one phrase longer than usual or shorter or something like that. But we did something. So, but yeah, that it's funny. Those little moments, like they take forever sometimes.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate to that as an editor. You know, that's the moments that really just makes the video work, but it's a matter of like tweaking, you know, one frame forward or back, and then you just find it and it sits right. And
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. So definitely, you know, whenever that intro has a really cool transition, that's just, I don't know. I appreciate that.
No, that's so good to know. Because also, man, for a while we didn't even use those strings, you know? So like in the teaser, a lot of times we ended up resorting to this. We had like this dark intro, this like dark ramp intro instead that was just kind of used as an alt for a long time. It's just this like, and then it goes right in. I think lately, like we've just like, and she's been all about it. She's just like, I like those strings. Like, let's use them more. So we have been, and it can be a little more challenging with the timing, but like, I'm just glad to hear you say that. 'Cause like, it makes me want to like, just go for that even more, in the future.
It's definitely cool to see it, sort of making a comeback, because it certainly happened a bit in the earlier seasons as well. I remember one where Shane's putting the rock on Otis's grave, and he like just places it just at the right time where they've sort of got the strings cued in. There's just something really satisfying about those.
And it gets you pumped. Like hearing that gets you pumped up.
Definitely, 100%. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know we've been chatting for about an hour. Are you right if I shoot you a couple more quick questions before we wrap it up?
Totally. Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. Cheers.
Yeah.
So coming back to the Whisperer theme, you've got sort of the beta branch off, and then I don't know what to call it, but where, you know, you've got that softer, more emotional version from where Alpha dies. And then that also comes back a bit more towards the end, leading the Horde over the cliff and stuff like that. Was that, I guess, planned to be an Alpha-specific thing, or just, you know, for the Whisperers in general? So,
it's fun. That ended up being called we ended up calling that, like, the Radiohead version of the Alpha theme.
Okay.
It's just got this kind of, I guess it's got this kind of Radiohead sort of harmonic and whatever feel to it. Anyway, that's what Angela had called it, but which I will take that because I'm a huge fan of Radiohead. So in any case, we had established this in 1002, I believe. This is our flashback. How did Alpha and Beta meet?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And how did the Whisperers really come about? And so if you remember, Alpha is she's with Lydia, and they're younger, and it's just like pre-Whisperers. And by the end of the episode, her and Beta are sort of embracing each other, not physically, but they're basically, and she even says like, I'm your A and you're my B, or something like that. Because they don't want to use their names. And that is where this is one of those spotting session, like, hit the pause button, let's talk about this for a bit. That was one of those moments where we decided we want to have a sort of dark, emotional version of the Whisperers theme.
Okay.
So it's emotional. It's like just ever so slightly sweet.
Yeah.
It's ever so slightly tragic. Like, you know, like, what these guys are messed up, right? So it can't be too pure. It's got to have
Sure.
there's got to be a taste of it that's dissonant and messed up. So there's that darkness, that sadness, and that ever so slight bit of kind of like rejoice and that's playing the connection that they're having, and celebration maybe. So that was all very intentional and kind of designed there. And then we brought it back a couple of times, and one of the times was at the end of Alpha's story when Negan gets her, and I think that was one of those moments where Angela was just like, can we just like what if we used the Radiohead version of the of the theme, and I think we I had tried it. I think I had like dropped it in there and like rearranged it, and it worked wonderfully. And somehow it's like using it for the beginning of the arc of Alpha and the end is appropriate.
Definitely, yeah. And it works well, for Alpha as well as Beta. I think it was in there when, obviously he gets stabbed in the eyes, he's having all those flashbacks, and it really tied in well in both those cases, hey?
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome.
That's awesome. And then just one other thing I was going to touch on was how you used a lot of I suppose like misleading cues really effectively especially for scenes where you think a character's about to die. So there was Jerry stuck in the cave.
Oh yeah.
Father Gabriel's one, especially in the latest episode where he's facing off. That was like that really epic string cue that felt like, okay, this is it, and then it sort of twisted around at the last moment.
Man. I'm so glad. Yeah. And those are, again, like props to you for picking up on all of those. I mean, I'm so impressed by your level of attentiveness to these musical beats that people like Bear and I obsess over, and then you kind of just wonder if it just gets lost, and it not lost, but it just becomes like a subconscious thing for the viewer. But you are just it's like you were in the spotting sessions with us, because those two scenes in particular, and this is not to be like reductionist or anything, but so often you get to a scene and it's like, there you can almost like count on like one or two hands the number of like things you want to say in a scene. Yeah. And this is just one of those scenes where it's like we want to do the misdirect. Like we want people to think he's going to die. And the way to do that is not like super intense action. It's completely the opposite. It's like suck out all of the percussion and all of that and make it like macro, like like we're pulling out, we're seeing the bird's eye view of this. It's tragic. And so we absolutely, like, with intention, we discussed this. And I don't know that it was that way in the temp. This is one of those things where I find, for whatever reason, like the composer will a lot of times suggest, like, can we not have this be action, but instead can we make this like tragic and sad? Like we want to play like this guy's gonna die, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So in any case, and I'm glad too you pointed out that strings cue for Gabriel's moment there. I happened to be fond of that. That's once again that I sort of performed that and had fun with that. Anyway, yeah. But again, like, props to you for picking up on that.
Oh, good. Hey, and that one, it was just so epic. that whole, it really lifted that whole scene up. So yeah, no, good job with that.
Very good. Yeah, there's something kind of holy or something about, when he says the half orange thing. To Judith, and then it kind of picks up. It's like he knows he's gonna die. He's like pumping the shotgun and you've just got this. So anyway, but yeah, cool.
Amazing job for just all your work. I definitely really appreciate all the hard work that must go into it, and yeah, man, you guys keep it up, because definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to come in the next season.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ben, and I can't promise this, but you've inspired me to want to like make some kind of video or something. Even if I know, like, if you're following me on Instagram, maybe I'll start posting some cool little I don't know, little, like, just the thing with the alpha beta like violin flute thing. Like I was thinking it might be a fun thing to like make a little breakdown video of, and it's so easy, like. In any case, you have inspired me to do something, and I'll bring it up with Bear. We can make a little video about all this, especially since we know the show is going to be coming to an end. So I think we owe it to the show and to the fans and to ourselves to just to do something. But in any case, thank you. I'm honestly, this is. It's invigorating to like to talk with people like yourself who are so carefully watching and listening. I so appreciate that.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed that interview. Thanks again, Sam, for taking the time out to come and chat. It really means a lot, and I really hope that you guys got something out of it and enjoyed it. If you're a big fan of the music, if there's any particular tracks that are your favorite that you really like, definitely hit us up. Let us know. You can head to turnsounds.com, and there's a contact us page there. I'm putting together a bit of a bigger fan project to show appreciation for the music, so anything you can send through just to say, hey, I really like the music, or this track really stood out to me, definitely send that through, and I'll make sure that you're part of it, and we can pass on the appreciation to the guys, to the team who put all the work into it. So make sure you stay in touch with us. Social media as well. We got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can search for Turn Sounds. Also on Instagram, we've got Just Keep Walking podcasts as a separate page as well. So make sure to follow all of those, and that way you'll be able to stay in touch, and we'd love to hear from you. Just let us know that you're listening, and thanks so much for tuning in. So just keep walking.